So, yeah, so the one thing there's a few things that I was hoping to talk to you about today. Obviously, you had the most incredible career that someone could have in sport, and a Canadian sporting icon. For me and my age and people that I know, the moment of you winning the 100 meters in 1996 was such a incredible moment. Like, I remember my whole family, I'm the baby of 5 kids, and my whole family's excited. You open your door and everyone on the street, doors are open, and they're like yelling in the street, everyone's giving that animalistic cry that you gave at the end of the race, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, man, let's jump on it.
So with us today is the incredible Donovan Bailey. So 5-time gold medalist in the Olympics and the World Championships, and world record holder in the 50-meter race as well, which I don't know if a lot of people know that. And what I read is that you still have that world record, as well as setting the 100-meter world record in 1996. So an iconic moment for everybody, and still involved in the sport in lots of ways. And I see you on TV quite a bit and commentating it. So it's fantastic to have you on. So thank you for doing this.
Listen, man, thank you. Yes, the 50-meter world record I still own. The Canadian 100-meter record I still own also. I think that a lot of people keep talking about these young cats. They haven't gotten it yet.
Right.
But yeah, listen, you know what? My career is I'm one of those blessed athletes to have shared incredible sporting moments with my family, Canadian fans, and track and field fans around the world. So you know what, I'm always blessed every day, every single day, wherever I land in the world. There's always a fan telling me about where they were and what they were doing at whatever their favorite sporting moment is. So yeah, I'm definitely blessed. I'm good to be here.
Yeah, and the one thing, there's a lot of layers, I think, to that race that made it so integral in Canadian sporting history, as well as just this moment. Everybody, or most people, run. So winning the 100 meters isn't like winning, no disrespect to hockey, but it's not quite the same, right?
It's not the same.
There's 6 countries that can play hockey decently, and something along those lines, and everybody in the world's running. So that's one factor. And then the other one that I don't know if it gets mentioned, but we had this huge moment in 1988 where an Olympic medal was won by a Canadian, and everyone was so proud. We won the biggest race that you can win. And then as Canadians, I was a little younger then, but we all sort of felt like that was stripped from us, like from everybody. Like we all took a ding. So you winning the 100-meter in 96 and setting the world record doing so felt like a redemptive moment, I think, for the whole country to win that race, set the world record in that race. I think that felt something for us to be like, we did it,
Well, you know what? I guess that's a yes and no in some ways for me personally. I mean, certainly it wasn't. When you have an opportunity to compete for your country, it wasn't necessarily for me trying to undo something. Obviously, you're involved in sports also, so you understand this. You can't undo someone else's actions. So my thought was, I prepared. I was already the world champion. I was already the #1 sprinter in the world, and so. Atlanta for me was just the next year from my career, where I was a #1 sprinter. Again, I just wanted to go there, do the things that I thought I was prepared for. Definitely do the things individually that I felt I needed to do, and also, and more importantly, try and get a gold medal for the relay team. I mean, that's something that was always a priority for me. Just me being a leader on and off the track. Also knowing that, I don't think that any sports person ever asked to be a role model, but you kind of get it. It goes with the territory,
right?
So I mean, I think that I felt that Canada had a right place. We've always done things right. We've always been we've always been in a place where Canada has been, maybe apologetic to real competition.
Right.
And so a lot of times when people talk about incredible sporting moments, sometimes hockey comes up, and I don't even know how it does. When, you have someone like Lennox Lewis, who is the the #1 gold medalist and became the biggest heavyweight champion in the world, one of the only undisputed champion. And then you have myself, who is the fastest human being in history. Everybody, we believe, can put gloves on and box if you're capable, and everybody can walk or everyone can run. So I don't even know how it is that we're not mentioned #1 and #2 or #1 and #1A. But either way, I think that I'm very blessed to be validated by Canadians, Canadian fans, and sporting fans around the world every single day, just because of what I did.
Right. Yeah. The one thing that I found out that was really interesting to me as well is I think there's a lot of pressure from a lot of sports, and we see people that are such outliers in how quality they are. You know, the Tiger Woods story where he's such an incredible golfer at such age, and LeBron James, like obviously. But the one thing that's interesting that I was reading is that if I'm accurate here, you were working as a stockbroker at like 23. So you weren't
not that old, but yeah, sure.
Okay. But you were not obviously staying in really good shape, but it wasn't a full-time thing for you in your early the first couple of years of your 20s. Is that accurate?
So yeah, I'm writing a book that's coming out later on. It's coming out in the spring or summer next summer. Okay. So yeah, so sometimes there are people that obviously change the narrative of my story, where they probably think that I fell out of the sky and started running fast.
Right, I'm not.
Now at 15, 16, 17 years old, I was one of the fastest kids in Canada.
Right.
Like for my age.
Right.
So it wasn't. So I mean, in high school, I was winning. All of my competitions, maybe except for like OFSA. But I was winning. I was winning, breaking records. Also, even at 11 years old, I competed in Jamaica, where I was also one of the fastest kids on the island.
Right.
So it wasn't. So it wasn't like I was. Again, I was just.
It's not like you were slow. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I played basketball at Sheridan College. We were playing basketball 5 days a week, and I was also the best athlete. I mean, I could jump the highest, even for my height. At 6'2", I could jump the highest. I was by far the best athlete on the team.
Right.
So I wasn't exactly a broker in like at the bank doing absolutely nothing. Right. And I wasn't there like, having steak and eggs and sitting down at a desk for 12 hours a day. So I was in phenomenal shape. Right. So for me, even the transition from that, because a lot of the part-time things that we addressed, I would actually be playing basketball. Then on the weekend, I'll hear that there's a track meet, and I'll go and I'll get my shoes and I'll run.
Right.
So zero practice, but I was also winning all those competitions.
Right.
I was winning the local Toronto competitions. Yeah, and then of course, I mean, joining the national team, I recognized that mentally I was ready to beat all of those guys. Or mentally, I was ready to beat, the guys at the time, which have been Bruni and Glenn Roy, a few others. But mentally, I knew I was better than. I felt I was better than them. But physically, I'd never put in the work ever. So that's why I kept getting hurt. So when I quit work and then I met Dan Paff, and he was at Louisiana State University, and Dan basically said to me, "Go, dude, you have the tools to become the greatest. So anytime you really want to take this seriously and come and do this full time, here I am." So again, so I want to make sure that, especially in the book, we kind of pin these things together so they kind of go, he didn't fall out of the sky. And because there's many, many, many people that know that, I don't know why it is that they just don't say it. I mean, there's tons of, Athletics Ontario has records from I was 13 years old breaking records, but
Right, but the part that's interesting to me about that is there's so many athletes that are highly successful. If we use the reference of hockey, goalies in hockey typically aren't any good until they're 26, 27 years old. And it's not that you were obviously an athlete. You can't fall out of the sky and be the fastest man on earth. It's just,
right.
Unless you get to use a car or a motorbike, it's just not happening. So, but what's interesting is people feel like they need to be like a world champion at 19 because these other people, they look at extreme outliers. And then in other sports, especially sports that aren't as big in judo, people are like, well, I'm not a junior world medalist. Okay, you're not a junior world medalist. You're 18 years old. You're a kid. You haven't finished physically growing. In another reference, I'm a huge baseball fan. So Jose Bautista wasn't an everyday player till 27, and then he wins the MVP. Josh Donaldson for the Toronto Blue Jays, same thing. We look at like our peak has to be peaked so early because we see a Wayne Gretzky or a Sidney Crosby or Tiger Woods. And that's the part that's sort of interesting is you peaked when people usually peak, which is in your late 20s, right? I think it was 29 or so when you won the Olympics and set the world record.
I won the Olympics at 26, but I'm saying to you that like I wasn't like, for me, it wasn't, I knew and I've always known that I've been fast and very physically gifted.
Right.
My parents were not one of those set of parents that, you know, they had me in the field of play and wanted me to practice 100 hours a day. Their only concern was academics. They couldn't care less about anything else. You know, so you know, and also it was, I also think it was the right time. When I was 17 years old and I finished high school, you know, I had several scholarships to the States. I had tons of offers.
Right.
My dad just thought, hey, you're 17 years old. You're not leaving the house. That's crazy. You're not a man yet. You know, and frankly, you know, when I look back at it, I think he was probably right. I don't know what would have happened if I went away to university when I was 17 years old. But you know,
as
I know
a star
that,
athlete.
Yeah, I mean, but I know that, like, when I got to the place where I could, you know, I was mentally and physically and psychologically prepared to absorb as much information as possible from my coach, Dan Path. I know that, you know, that when I got there, like when I left and went to Louisiana, like 3 months later, I was like top 5 in the world.
Right.
You know, so I mean, so, and all it was, you know, someone, one, telling me how prepared I need to be, two, telling me that I need to come to the track and be prepared to learn. Three, I was focused enough to actually absorb that information.
Right.
4, I would be able to adjust to the things that he was telling me, because in the 3 months that I was there, I kind of understood what sleep meant. You know, I mean, like the basic, I mean, you're 22 years old, 23 years old. You're like, what, sleep? Well, no, dude, you have to sleep. Hydration, sleep, massage, you know, understanding, you know, how to, you know, stimulate your body through weightlifting. You know, there's all of these things. I'm like, I didn't know, you know, so I think that when we, so when I got to, you know, thinking about this stuff full time, success came very easy for me because, and very quickly actually, because it was the first time I was actually in that structure.
This episode is brought to you by Barren Ground Coffee. Started in 2017 in Yellowknife, they focus on delicious blends of coffee from all over the world and now ship anywhere in Canada. They support numerous events and causes and not only deliver a great product, but prioritize staff health and well-being. Please use promo code A Fighting Chance at checkout to receive a discount. Right. And also, as you were saying, you'd go to these events that you hear about, you'd go and you dust everybody. So one thing about confidence is it comes from success. So you weren't competing at a level you weren't ready to compete at all the time. You're going to events, setting records, crushing everyone, and then going to the next event. And then when you go play basketball, you'd go dominate, you know? So it's like, it didn't matter where you went. You were just like, well, I'm the best. Like I win at everything that I do. And so that's the other part that could, you never know, you can't, you know, reverse engineer and figure it all out. But it's like, maybe that timing did help you, because then you went to this place being like Bruni Surin, as you mentioned, was an incredible, he medaled at the world championships. He was obviously on your 4x100 meter relay team that set the Olympic record, I believe.
Commonwealth record. Yeah, we had all the records except for the world record.
Right. And so it's like, obviously incredible athlete. When you go there thinking, I can beat him, like this is not this isn't some guy that runs as well. This is, you know, an incredible
and that's
athlete.
what I thought. That's what I'm saying to you. I like all of those things that I did. Like when I got to the world stage, I was just like, oh, so Carl Lewis is next to me. Linford Christie, like I have the Olympic champions next to me. And I'm like, I'm not scared of these guys.
Right.
You know, so I mean, so I'm saying to you, mentally and psychologically, it just didn't even matter. So like when I got, like, there's so many times that people ask me, said, well, when you got to the world championships in Sweden, in Gothenburg, Sweden, what were you thinking? I was thinking, well, I guess I got to win another one. Like it wasn't like, like for me, it wasn't like at all. I didn't even think about it. And it is absolutely no disrespect to any one of those athletes, because what's incredible is that I have a healthy respect for any athlete who brings it every time. It's always, I mean, and I don't care what sport you're in, right? In track and field or in sprinting, I know that, you know, Frankie Fredericks, Otto Bolden, Linford Christie, Carl Lewis, Leroy Burrell, Dennis Mitchell. There's a slew of guys you have a healthy respect for. But I didn't go in thinking, oh my God, the great person is next to me. Because I walked in the room going, the greatest person is me.
Right.
Right. And I'm saying to that, I learned all that because of, because obviously I think because of timing, but, you know, it was because of, you know, like Dan, I think how we communicated, how we connected, the age that I was at, the level of responsibility I felt that I had. And also we, you know, you mentioned Ben before and kind of like, you know, hovering in the clouds of what sport was with me going in it in the 90s. I understood what my personal responsibility was. So not only was this fun for me and I was enjoying it, I'd been prepared by the best coach for me. Mark Lindsay was the guy who knew my body, well, still to this day, knows my body more than I know it myself. And I was in an environment that was so positive that when I got to that level, man, I'm just like, oh, okay. So I didn't think, I walked in and probably wearing the Canadian uniform, but I was ready, the world champion walking on the track. I was ready, the Olympic champion walking on the track. And that's really kind of the tone that I set for the relay. I'm like, guys, I'm not here we're not competing. I said, just give me the stick. This is crazy. And funny enough, a lot of times when I went, like you mentioned hockey also, the expectation that we have at the World Championships or World Juniors, you know, or Olympics for hockey, especially men's hockey, you know, is that we are going to win the gold. And there is nothing else that we want but gold. And you know, so stealing from that was my attitude. I'm like, there's no chance I'm going to Commonwealth Games and it's not gold, World Championships and it's not gold, Olympics and it's not gold. I said, I'm the greatest ever. So that's how it's going to be. So I felt that way individually, but also I had to, you know, essentially our relay team, I think with Bruni and Glenroy, I think a lot of those guys they were satisfied with being competitors and I was not. And so that attitude changed. You know, I got on the national team and that attitude changed when I started, you know, immersing myself and also, you know, being the #1 sprinter of the world. So they kind of understood.
And the thing, there's it's interesting too, like to that point of, I think confidence in some weird way isn't credited enough sometimes in athletes. Like that confidence is so powerful. Like our body is a puppet to our brain and our mind. Like it's only doing what we tell it to. If we tell it we're not capable of this, we're not going to do it. There's a really interesting podcast I recently listened to with John Bernthal, and he's talking to this former Navy SEAL, and he said, you put 100 pounds on your back, you can walk 100 miles. Your body can do it. Your mind always breaks. The mind always breaks before the body. Our body's always capable of more, but we break. And so if you go in and you have this confidence that no one else has, you're going to do better. It doesn't, even if you aren't as physically gifted, if they think they can't beat you, there's no way it's going to happen.
I mean, and that's what I'm saying to you. From day one, when I went in, when I talk about my own, my confidence or my mental preparation, or maybe I just didn't give a shit. I don't know. You know what I mean? I got there and I'm like, I can crush these guys. I mean, I've been doing it. So why can't I crush these guys? And so when you combine that then with someone like Dan Paff, who, who's probably the best, we'll say exercise physiologist, biomechanics expert. Like when you combine all of those, and he's an incredible teacher. So I already have the confidence. I'm training with Glenroy. I see Bruni, but I'm like, nah. I see Linford and I see Dennis. I see Carl, but I'm like, there's no, I'm not even, why am I even here? Like, why are these guys even here? Better yet. So yeah. So I mean, the balance was, like I said, I know what my physical tools were. and with the combination, of one putting in the work. A lot of times, you just mentioned Navy SEAL. If you certainly can walk 100 pounds, you can walk 100 miles on 100 pounds on your back. But mentally alone, you can't do that. So when you're putting the work, let's just say you practice a little bit, and you stick that thing on your back, it's like, okay, now I'm ready. Your mind might break. I mean, mind you, you're talking about endurance. So my God, 100 miles and you're not in the car, I'd have a problem. But, but I'm just saying to you that it is, when you have the combination of being very confident, mentally prepared, believing in yourself, believing, having your support system that allows you to do whatever, to be limitless in your thoughts and your action, combined with putting in the work, it's only upside. It is only upside.
Right. Yeah. And it's amazing. Like another very Canadian moment to everybody, is, and no more on display than, there's sort of a Jay-Z and Nas moment before Jay-Z and Nas, which is you and Michael Johnson, right? Is this race of the American media. Maybe his camp was part of it. I don't really know, but but they took his 200-meter time, divided in half. They said, look, it's faster. It doesn't matter that they didn't hit the same top speed as you. It's faster. Well, there's a running head start in that 100 meters, which leads to this like epic battle in the media and everything of like, you can't take the title of fastest person. You're not,
well, listen, I don't know. And I just find it fascinating. Michael's greatest 100 meters is maybe 10-1, maybe.
Right.
His greatest, right? And so, and also his fly 100 meters, so which is be the second half of his 200 meters, is probably 9.2, maybe, right? And so when you're talking about math, I have the world record at 9.8. He has his greatest 100 meters at 10.2, 10.1, 10.2 at the greatest moment. His fly 100 meters is 9.2. My fly 100 meters from the relay is 8.6. So I don't know, like
that's crazy.
So, exactly. So I'm saying to you that when you're having a conversation about math, I get it that you want to make Michael the star of the Olympic Games in America.
Right. This was in Atlanta. Right.
No,
yeah.
But I'm the star. I mean, and the thing is, I just made it known. I'm like, but I'm the star. I get to tell you what's going to happen. But hey, listen, maybe if I worked for NBC, I'd probably be thinking the same thing, because I'm thinking, man, this guy just came from the little stepbrother country up north, and he's crushed. He broke the world record, broke us all down. There is no Americans on the podium. Then he comes back a week later and crushed us in the relay.
Yeah.
Put his hand up 15 meters from the finish line.
Right.
Okay, we got to do something about this.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, hey,
and it's in Atlanta, right? So such a,
Atlanta.
Yeah.
In Atlanta. So I'm saying to you that, yeah, I mean, I get it. I get I get why. I understand that, but the math is absolutely pathetic. The math could never work.
Right.
And one of the things, I mean, I was having a conversation with another journalist buddy of mine a couple of nights ago in Toronto, and we're having a conversation about what he did was, he said, dude, I went back and revisited the 150 because it was over in like one step. And I said, yes, crazy. I said, it's incredible that people don't understand that I'm 1.5 meters down on the inside of a tight track, but I caught him in 3 steps, which simply means that if we're running, like Michael and I ran a 100 meters in Duisburg, Germany in 1994. I was probably 15 meters ahead of him. I ran 10:02, and I think his time was 10:4 or 10:3. Right. That's as close as he's ever going to get in 100 meters with me. Right. So the 150 was kind of crazy that someone thought that it was actually going to be a race. But in actual fact, one of the things that I look at all the positives. Michael Johnson is one of the best speed endurance athlete that ever graced the face of the earth. I am one of the best power sprinters that ever graced the face of the earth. What we did in 1997 in the Sky Dome was this. We were the first athletes, we're the first track and field athletes to own an event, right? Just like Oscar De La Hoya, or Mayweather Productions, or like, and that's what people don't look at. We're the first athlete. We're the first athletes who determined what the purse was going to be. So we paid each other $500,000 each just to appear. Now, there is no other track competition before that or till today that's even remotely close, right? We also control the purses, we control the pay-per-view, and we have even media rights. So I'm saying to you that as an entrepreneur, that is what people should look at that race for. Like, forget about the race. The race itself was never going to be a competition. But I completely respect Michael, because he and I did something that we did. Like, we had the race, but we also did something from a business perspective that we do not get enough credit for.
Right, and it sort of sets the table for people doing that going forward. Like, he was an incredible promoter, that's for sure. You know,
absolutely.
Like, he had that. Remember, what was it? He had gold in his shoes or something like that.
Golden shoes. Yeah, he had the golden shoes.
Right, and yeah. So it was like the promotion, and I mean, this feud brewing in public. I mean, that only helps it. You look at UFC. These people have to look at things like that and be like, oh, this is how you build up some entertainment, build up some excitement for something. All of these UFC fighters don't hate each other going in. Like, that's a ridiculous place. And the one other thing that I was wondering about that's sort of interesting is I saw that there was these two professional races. Like, most Canadians, most of the sport we see is at the Olympics or basketball or something like this. Because there's these professional races that happen in Europe. So I saw there was these two races you were involved in called the Dream Team and the Dream Team 2. One of them was Carl Lewis's last race, where he anchored the 4x100. And the one thing that I saw that was interesting is before the Olympics is Dream Team. I think it was in 96 or before those games.
96, 97. Were you talking about when myself, Carl, Linford, and Michael ran?
It's a 1 year. Yeah. And Freddie Fredericks was involved. So you're in two different races, and Michael was on your team. So the one thing I was wondering about is that I believe your race with Michael on your team was before those Olympics. Like, were you cordial before and this turned into something, or were you guys never friends? You just happened to be on a team at some point?
No, I mean, Mike, I don't really know Michael that well, but I definitely have a healthy respect for him. And I think also a big part of all of this stuff is this. Track and field is a professional sport. So, and this has been happening since probably the 60s or 50s, 60s. There's international track and field competition where there's 50,000, 100,000 people packed stadium to this day. So the Olympics is really just like the catalyst of all of these things. That's all it is. So a lot of times when I still to this day, I educate people about our sport. Just like golf and just like tennis, there is track and field competitions going on around the globe all year round. And you get paid a lot of money, and you go and you compete. That's it. I mean, so again, just like tennis and just like golf. And so there's always, some of my favorite places to compete. I mean, I started competing in Doha many years ago. Berlin, where Jesse Owens used to be, Brussels. I think the big Brussels Diamond League race is coming up, and it's called the Diamond League. When I competed, it was called the Grand Prix circuit. So, but it's exactly the same thing. But yeah, it's not. I think that we don't want to create a facade that athletes go and they train for 4 years for one race. That is true, but
sort of.
But there are sort of. But there are you can compete 50 times a year if you want to. I wouldn't advise it. But if you want to, so that's what I'm saying to that. Anytime, sometimes people will see, like for instance, at the Olympic Games, Marcel Jacobs from Italy won the 100 meters. And everyone's like, oh my God, where did he come from? Well, he had won the European Indoor Championships.
Pretty serious race.
I'm just saying to you that this is some kid he's been a long jumper for like 10 years. So it wasn't, again, didn't fall out of the sky. So
Right.
track and field athletes or people who are involved in the sport are never really surprised, because you'll never find someone falling out of the sky to win. Yes, everyone can run.
Right.
Everyone that's able can run. Again, it's no different than, again, I mentioned Lennox earlier, it's no different than a heavyweight boxer just coming out of the stands, putting gloves on and knocking everybody out.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
And yeah, it's one of the pet peeves that I have, actually. Any of us that are in sport for our life,
Right.
like, this is a lifetime endeavor. Oh, they trained 4 years. So in your case, you won the Olympics at 26. Yeah, I'm
Right.
sure you started running at 22. It's
Right.
like, people
Right.
have done these things forever. Same
Right.
thing. Lennox didn't just put the gloves on, go to the games and go, let's see how this goes. Right.
Correct.
You do these things your whole life. People that become professional soccer players, they're playing at 4, they're playing at 5 years old. They do it their whole lives. And not only that,
Right.
like, in many cases, at 6 and 7 and 8 year olds, they have school projects saying, I want to be an Olympic champion. They didn't roll out of bed and decide to go and then
That's
win.
true.
It's ridiculous. Like, yes, there's a 4-year cycle, I grant,
Right.
but like,
But absolutely. And I think that, again, I don't think that we do enough, and the Olympic committees and governing bodies don't do enough, to spread it like it is a professional sport. I mean, these
Right.
guys really need to take a page. They need to take a page from professional golf or professional tennis, and
Tennis is a great
market it
idea,
that
too.
way,
Yeah.
and get an incredible media contract and let people see these stars and grow that, especially now with social media. It is very important for it to be presented that way. And also it shows the options that a ton of the young generation have right now, that this is a viable option, where you certainly can decide you're going to go to law school or become an accountant or a banker. But in the meantime, I mean, hey, if your physical prowess can get you a scholarship,
Mhm.
and you can create another bigger network, and you can go to the Olympic Games and make some money at it, why not? You can have everything.
Yeah, the idea that this is amateur sport is laughable, in a sense.
Well, I mean, hey,
Judo is the same thing. To the same point, we have a circuit that models tennis. We have Grand
Right.
Slams, we have Grand Prix, we have World Cups, we have Pan Am Circuit event.
Absolutely.
In North America, not a lot of people know about it. I don't think you've probably seen a lot of judo in your day, but at the
Right.
international scale, same. It's practiced everywhere. People in Russia, you have world champions from Israel, Russia, all over the place. Like, this is judo's practiced in over 200 countries. So
Right.
it's the same. It's like, all of these things are at this professional level. It has to be. People don't do the things that you've done
Right.
without it being a professional endeavor. That people aren't doing this for a lifetime to achieve these things, pushing your body for this long.
I'm glad that you brought up obviously, judo quite well, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, I'm glad that you're you're using the parallel, because it is that. I mean, we're in Canada, and there's times that a ton of my hockey boys, I'd be like, hey man, I said, do you realize that there might be 4 to 6 countries that this is popular? That's it.
Right.
But to the point, but to the Canadian media's perspective, it's an incredible job of marketing.
Right.
Judo, 200 plus countries. Every single country in the world has a sprinter. Everyone.
Right.
Every country. They might not run 10 seconds, but every single person, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I obviously very much the same way that judo is practiced in every country.
Right.
Every single one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And soccer. Right. It's so
Soccer,
cheap. It's so easy to do it.
By far, absolutely.
So easy to do it. A ball.
A ball. Well, you don't need a ball. You need something.
Right. Something to kick.
You need something to kick. That is absolutely. You can literally create your own ball from
T-shirts and tape.
Wrapped up old clothes. Exactly. Wrapped up old clothes and some cord, and all of a sudden you're playing basketball. With track and field, what do you got? Nothing. Judo, same. No, it's okay.
Right. Yeah.
I just need a space.
Yeah, I just grab onto you. Let's roll.
That is it, man. That's incredible.
Amazing. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but it was fantastic to chat with you today, and thank you so much for your time, and always an honor to get to speak with you. So thank you again, and I hope all is well.
Josh, great to chat to you today. Awesome conversation. Yes, we can get at this another time, man. But it's been real good. Been real
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, take care. Have a good day.